Exactly as predicted, we can see that the head and shoulders pattern has now come into the markets. And as Cointelegraph says here, there's a risk indeed for an $80,000 Bitcoin price dip. Also, we have over here on crypto Twitter, the head and shoulders from Mr. Peter Brandt. Actually, I massively respect Mr. Peter Brandt, and he very accurately summarizes the pattern right here in this little phrase. But just wanted to point out that, again, from last week, this is going to be very likely the new meme. And that actually opens up the door for a very likely pattern to emerge, which is what I'm going to be going over in today's video. But before that, probably does get a little bit worse. So let's go to the actual charts right over here. We can see that, yes, indeed, there is a herp and dirt pattern right there, head and shoulders if you're a little bit new here. And of course, that is more likely to break down than break out to the upside. If we were to look at the official implied move from this, well, it would imply actually all the way down to, yeah, about 78 to 79,000 bucks would be your implied move right there. I do not think that that is actually likely to play out. I do think, however, that you will get a false break. And you probably will get a bit of a fake out to follow after that, and it's going to be pretty fucking nasty, I expect. And I also expect that it happens within the next week to 2 weeks. Probably even this first week of the coming new month, or the coming new year, actually. Anyways, yes, okay. So last week we did say that Bitcoin was very likely to retest these lows from the past couple weeks here at about 92,500 bucks. Gotten pretty damn close thus far. I still think that Bitcoin likely does have a little bit of a further decline before trying for maybe another short-term bounce. Short-term bounce could come, I'm not saying that it's going to come, but it could come all the way to about 97, 98,000 bucks. That is, of course, just another lower high, and likely does set this thing up to break down, into the first week of the, of the new year. So going through everything else, I do want to also be aware that the weekly HPDR has been opened below. The weekly has opened below the median HPDR, which I would just use as kind of like a general governor of, as long as Bitcoin's below there, any sort of a short-term rally is just that, a short-term rally before very, 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 very likely having this break to the downside and scaring the ever-loving shit out of everyone. The median as of right now is just below 97,000 bucks. So again, we could see price action rally, somewhere around there in the short term, if it wants. Again, I'm not saying it's going to 100% or anything like that. It's just it could, and it would still be bearish as long as Bitcoin is again below about 97,000 bucks. So moving on from there, we should also be aware that I didn't even realize that it does rhyme as well. We do see that Bitcoin stochastic momentum is pretty much down on all higher term timeframes. So the bi-weekly right here is going to have a threat to actually cross the downside for the first time in a very long time. Actually, did this one not already close? Okay, yeah, I guess not. But it will at the end of this week, assuming that Bitcoin is below 97,500 bucks. That combined with a weekly, which is also downside angled as long as Bitcoin's below 107. The 10-day time frame also about to cross the downside, I believe, tomorrow if Bitcoin does close below 101, which right now trading healthily below. The 5-day time frame also nosediving below about 107. The 2-day time frame also nosediving below about 107, and the daily time frame also downside angled here in the extreme, or actually, sorry, getting very close to the extreme bearish control zone, of which it will remain with downside pressure as long as Bitcoin's trading below 96,400. So, as long as all of these things are kind of in concert with each other, I would say that while there is potential for maybe another rally attempt off of about 92 or 92,500 bucks, very, very likely that is going to be rejected, and very likely we do see this one trade further south. So the question is, how further south could it go, and what would this next sort of segment look like if I'm saying that Bitcoin unlikely to meet the what I would consider like a very bearish target of 80,000 or a little bit below 80,000 bucks, based off of the herp and derp right here. Well, we'll get into that in just a second. I should actually at this moment say that if you do find this content valuable or entertaining, or even if you hate it as well, please do consider subscribing. We're ever so close to 200,000 subscribers with just 2 days left to go in the year of 2024. I'm curious if we can hit it. I think we need just under 200 subscribers, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyways, yes. Okay. So we went over the head and shoulders target, but here's the thing. Something that I want to keep a keen eye on here is what happens, or where do things kind of align on January 1st? That'll be Wednesday. As of right now, the monthly time frame is a pretty damn good governor and guide as to where we should expect the lows of the month during uptrending price action. Basically, it is as simple as this, and this is not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a very good fit for simple sort of analysis. And just looking at that red 5 exponential moving average, we can see that Bitcoin, especially during up phases, likes to reconnect with it on just about each and every period. Yes, sometimes it does not do it exactly like that. Like you see, let me find an example. Like you see over here, disconnects for a month, disconnects for 2 months, but it does reconnect over here on the 3rd month. And the point that I want to make is that when you do see a disconnect like this, price action, as we've been saying, is very unlikely to continue, in this case to the upside direction, before having a reconnect. So sideways and maybe a little bit of downside going to be the more likely thing. Now, if you look at where the 5 exponential moving averages right now on the monthly, it is at very low 80,000. It's 81,400 to be exact. And I suspect, or I don't suspect, but it is a mathematical certainty that on January 1st, this moving average, just with the way that moving averages are calculated, will move up very likely somewhere around 86 to 88,000 bucks. And so is that, an obvious reconnect and sort of corrective target for Bitcoin? Well, I would argue very likely yes, or at least you should expect a nice bounce attempt from that region, which can reverse the current sort of medium-term trend. On top of that, if Bitcoin were to play down to let's just call it like 86,000 bucks or 88,000 bucks, that would be about a 20% decline. Okay, why is that relevant? Well, throughout this whole rally, or I shouldn't say the whole rally, it is the whole rally since 2023 began, we've seen on average 20% corrections the whole way through. Let me just take you through it right here. We can go back to February of 2023. There's your 22.5% correction to the downside, followed by another rally and a 20% correction sharply after that, followed by yet another 21 or very close to 22% correction right there. Then again, we do have at the beginning of this year, January, another 21% correction off of the ETF news, or it's not really news, just the ETF being listed. And then several 20% corrections throughout that 7 or 8 month long consolidation period that we saw for most of this year. You see one right here, 23%. You see another one right here, 25%, a little bit bigger to be fair. This one over here, actually 30%, so significantly more. But yes, as of right now, if Bitcoin were to come down to about 20% at minimum, I would be looking for a bit of a bounce there. And from there, that is where things can get very interesting. So again, the sort of assumption here is that Bitcoin very likely to move to the downside. Maybe we get a short-term bounce, but to me, that's kind of irrelevant, especially as long as Bitcoin's below this last lower high here on the from the 26th of December. Downside is the more likely direction, or especially as long as Bitcoin is again below the median here on the weekly HPDR. Now, if and when Bitcoin does break down, let's call it below about 92,000 bucks, you're going to see a lot of people, these people over here, talk about the herp and derp. And herp and derp patterns do work out. Like it's not like the worst pattern in the world. It's not like many other patterns, but they are ripe for a bit of a fake out and trap. And so when you do see, if you do see Bitcoin break below 92, you're going to see a lot of people targeting like upper 70s to 80,000 bucks, let's call it. What I suspect is very likely to happen is you're going to get that reconnect with the 5 exponential on the monthly, which is going to come in somewhere around, let me go to a fresh chart. It's going to come in somewhere around about, let's just call it 86 to 88,000 bucks. And then from there, you have a real potential for a trap, I suspect, because one, this would be, one of your major range lows right here, just coming in from this spike low in early December. But two, whenever you have a herp and derp pattern, there exists the potential for a failure, in this case, not playing out its full downside target, which actually then has a pretty, at least in my opinion, impressive bullish target. So, if we do see it come down around here and you start to see Bitcoin rally from there, especially, and then Bitcoin especially rallies back above this last lower high, or, likely wherever the median is on the weekly as well. But this is something that we can actually, look at right now. And at that point, you're going to see a massive fucking move to the upside. When I say massive fucking move to the upside, what I mean is that you can essentially, whoops, I'm doing it wrong right there. You can apply that prospective downside estimated move to the upside from that right shoulder. And that would be pointing Bitcoin up towards, 117 or so, which I do believe is congruent with several other targets that I think a lot of people have. And, this would be, this would be, in my opinion, perfect as far as micropsychology goes, because first you get people, right now people are kind of complacent, I think. And so first you get them to freak out and they're like, oh shit, okay, now I need to get very bearish. It's coming back down to 80. I'm just going to sell right now. Okay, that's 10%, that I can make on this. I'll just buy back in there. No problem. Gets a little bit closer to their target, but then moves the other way. And then, of course, you get people freaking out on the other side. So you got liquidity on both ways, with people kind of, freaking out about getting into position. So I expect that this is actually something that is, again, this is way far in the future. So I don't know if this is exactly going to happen, but I suspect that this is one of those times, one of those instances where you have a very high probability for a move like this. Anyways, moving on from there, I do want to leave one last thing for the very end. Actually, a couple things for the very end here. One, we should go check in on, hey, why are you not loading? We should go check on the quantum wave bands. They have had a significant amount of trades in the past like week and a half. You can see, a lot of small wins, a couple of losses in there as well, but ultimately working as a scalping tool that it is designed to be. We're actually be upgrading that, likely in the coming month as well. But also for the people who stay on here for the very, very end, I just want to give you a very quick and easy kind of simple way to define if Bitcoin is even, at a threat of going up. And it's the simplest fucking way to look at things right here. What I'm looking at is that yellow and green moving average. That is a 21 and a 55 exponential moving average, respectively, also known as the silver cross. And basically anytime that it crosses to the upside, these have preceded some pretty impressive moves. In fact, the last one was all the way from 62,000 to, closing here at around $98,000. Not bad. Of course, not every time that it happens is going to be a massive trade. You can see that several of these over here, despite being wins, were, minimal. and the losses also, also a little bit on the lower side as well. But whenever a big move does happen, it captures that. And so what am I trying to suggest here? I'm trying to suggest that, one, as long as Bitcoin, or as long as these moving averages are not crossed the upside, there's no threat of like a major move to the upside. But if you do see kind of the scenario that I'm painting over here, maybe there's a short-term bounce here and then rolls over, and then it pops back up over here, and you see those two major moving averages cross here, which probably would be happening before Bitcoin does take out this last lower high. That would be an early indication that the trap is very likely formulating. So that is something I'd be aware of. Of course, if you were to just play this strategy blindly since 2015, here would be your stats. It's pretty silly how well that works. Your percent profitable is certainly less than 50, which I think is a problem for a lot of people. But with the profit factor at almost 3.5, that doesn't take a fucking genius to make money doing that. Of course, we go over here into our average winning trades and average losing trade. We do have about 28.5% on the average winning trade versus about 5% or a little bit over 5% on the average losing trade. So again, if you're in the Quant Prime service, you can set up a strategy like this if you so desire. I wouldn't use this exact one, although funnily enough, it is actually decent. But of course, if you even have half of a brain, you can probably figure out a better way to take profit for this one, because you can see that this one, does give up a decent amount, even on a lot of these winning trades. Like you see this one right here, traded significantly above that entry, but didn't close until significantly after, which, obviously will happen with the moving average strategy. But I'm just saying, use something else for your take profit. You could probably think of a few ideas, and well, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this video. As always, I want to wish everyone the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Tuesday.